Stop messing around, stop fooling around, stop delaying, stop procrastinating. Get up, get out, get it done. Everything is possible, nothing is a problem, and anything can be overcome. I just get my ass up out of bed, I get my shit together, and I get out and I start the fight. And that will transform you from a mere mortal into a superhuman being. I've never, ever, ever met anybody who told me that they got rich watching their IRA or their 401k.
Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. My name's George Robson.
Welcome to the Daily Cash Flow. My name is Peter Siegel. Hi, George.
Hi, Peter. How you doing today?
I'm well, thank you.
Fantastic.
It's a nice sunny day. We're at the shore, New Jersey shore.
Hey man, autumn has come. It feels like
Yeah.
so gorgeous.
A little bit, although, you know, we have sun's out, ocean's the right temperature still, the waves are coming in, people are out surfing, having fun, enjoying the local summer part of it. It was cold as fuck a couple of weeks ago. It was in the 40s.
And felt like winter almost.
That wasn't good, but you know, happy day here today.
Yeah, fantastic.
I think.
Well, to get started, I was thinking about this week how it seems like there's a lot of new businesses, a lot of people starting new businesses, new startups, and it struck me as odd. It seemed surprising to me.
Why?
Well, that's the thing. Then I second guessed myself, and I thought, well, should this be surprising? And what I wanted to ask you about
Because
is,
it's a virus and everything's closing?
Yeah, during the pandemic, now that everything's closed and you know the economy is in this weird place, is this a good time or a bad time to start a business? And what are your opinions on that?
Well, there's no doubt that businesses have been closing. We all know that. But is it a good time to start a business? I think what drives that is the person starting the business. You got to be ready. You got to be able to live it, breathe it, sleep it. It's not a thing that you can take lightly. It's not something that you're going to do part-time or, you know, you're starting a business, man. You're making a commitment of your money, your time, which is super valuable, other people's time and wages. Perhaps you're employing people, you have to pay people, they're going to rely on you. I think these major economic and cultural shifts and corrections that occur are the best times to start business. And it sounds weird, perhaps because there's uncertainty in the world, and why start a business when you don't know what your sales are going to be? But when do you ever know what your sales are going to be? When do you ever know what your revenues are going to be? You don't. So if you're thinking about starting a business but say, well, no, I'm not going to do it now, I mean, what are you looking for? Are you looking for a big, you know, soft, warm, cuddly cradle, someone to like pet your forehead and tell you that's okay and whisper in your ear that you're going to be fine?
That does sound nice.
It's not going to happen, man. I mean, if you're going to start a business, you got to put on your gloves, get out there, and go fight. You've heard me say that before. I mean, business is often being in a fight day in and day out. And that's the way it's going to be on an economic upswing. That's the way it's going to be during a pandemic. That's the way it's going to be during a market crash. That's the way it's going to be during boom times. I mean, it's a fight. It's never easy, and it's never great. I like these times of economic correction and cultural correction like we're in now, because a lot of the pricing in our economy resets, and you can buy things that you couldn't buy before. You could sign leases where you couldn't sign them before. Now, on the flip side of that coin, a lot of things are also more expensive. The cost of construction materials more expensive right now. The cost of lots of things are more expensive right now. So perhaps the business that people should be starting would be the ones that take advantage of the materials and goods and services that have been left behind in the price increases over the past 6-8 months. Yeah. I think now's a great time to start a business. I mean, it's scary no matter when you start it. So if you're looking for comfort, if you're looking for assurance, if you're looking for a hug and a pat on the back, you know, go ask your boyfriend or girlfriend for that. But if you're looking for sales, and if you're looking for growth and revenue, and if you're looking to build a business, get to fucking work. And there's no time that's better than another time for that. Either you want to do it or you don't. Either it's inside you or it's not. You know, if you're like, oh, well, I think I'll just start a business. I don't know, am I going to bet on you as a jockey? Perhaps not. Perhaps, I don't know. I have to see what the whole thing is. But I want to look in someone's eyes, and I want to feel their hunger and sense their urgency, and I want to sense their level of passion and dedication, like in 4 seconds.
Right, regardless of the outcome.
Yeah, I mean, if I don't, it just, the business isn't going to have as great a shot to succeed as if there's someone at the helm that's just dripping with passion and urgency and dedication to it from the start. I think people are starting businesses right now for a couple of reasons. One, they're out of a job, so maybe they're forced to by necessity. Two, they feel uncomfortable at the job that they're at. For some reason, they're still at their job and they don't know how long it's going to last for, or they haven't been enjoying it. So they're saying, man, I got to get out of here. I got to be on my own. We see some of that. And then we continue to see people starting businesses, especially young people, because society and our culture today has taught us that it's now the cool thing to do. Be an entrepreneur, start a business, which is great. We've talked about that a lot, George. You know my thoughts on that. So you just got to be prepared. You got to be ready. Have it be from the inside out. Entrepreneurship, starting a business, is less about checking boxes on a list and more about what you're bringing to the table from the inside, viscerally. Your passion, your dedication, your hunger, your sense of urgency, your idea, your eat what you kill attack plan that you're going to have on this business from the very first day, right? It's your back's up against a wall. You have to make it work. Now you can make it work. Are you going to be able to? Are you going to choose to? Are you going to push through your fears and mental blockades? Are you going to figure stuff out? Are you a problem solver of epic proportions? Because if you are, those are the people that succeed in starting businesses and running businesses. But if you're sort of like flip-floppy, half-baked pancake, you're not going to compete. We all thought in my industry that there was going to be a big market correction with apartment buildings, income producing real estate was going to correct. We haven't seen that yet. In fact, things are nuts, even more so than they were before the pandemic, because there's no supply of inventory for people to buy. There's all this money and capital on the sidelines, and prices are getting pushed up, cap rates are getting compressed down. There's just no inventory out there for the market to consume. I think we're going to see that correction next year with office and retail properties. With apartment buildings, I don't think we're going to see a correction so quickly, or at all, is my bet. But in a lot of industries, people thought they'd see a correction and pricing pull back because of what's happened to the economy as a result of the pandemic. And that hasn't really occurred so much. The bars and restaurants got hammered and continue to be hammered, and it's horrible. Gyms, salons, spas, they've started to try and come back just recently. I mean, it's October 1st now, and just recently they're starting to have some signs of life, the ones that were able to make it this far. I mean, it's been awful for those sectors and those businesses. A lot of other businesses have done really well. So it's a two-sided coin, especially during a cultural or economic correction like what we're in now. I think it's a great time to start a business. Just pull up your big boy and your big girl panties and get to work.
Speaking about getting to work, you said that you work hard and you play hard.
I do.
Yeah, that's something you've talked
I
a
do
lot
everything
about before.
hard.
Yeah. What's your barometer for when to play? When do you know when to play? How do you avoid burnout?
I mean, my pressures come in waves. So I'm in a pressure wave right now. I'm cranking. I've got a huge goals list and a huge to-do list, and I'm powering through it right now. I'm in the middle of a bunch of transactions. We have some critical stuff going on here at the office that aren't transactional, but that I'm working on and that I'm involved with, on top of our slew of projects that are already in the pipeline and underway. So I'm busy as fuck right now. So when I get through it, and when I complete it, and when I am able to remove it from my to-do list and delete it because I've accomplished it, then I start to think about when I can play. Right now these transactions are taking up long hours and a lot of time and focus for me. When I get through the transactions, when I close or when I'm soon to close, I'll be able to kick back for a minute. But when I kick back, I'll be blowing off some steam because you got to let it out.
Is that something you predetermine? When it feels like, okay, I'm really in warrior mode now, on this date or after this goal, that's when it happens? Or is it just a feeling?
I see how I feel. I mean, I got to get through it. I got to get through my shit. Yeah. I got to get through my shit. I can't go, I can never say to my family or my business, all right, I'm going on a vacation because I booked a ticket 3 months ago, thinking that this would be the celebratory moment where I'd go away and escape and go on a trip or something. I mean, if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. My life has always been a little bit spur of the moment that way. I mean, I know there's certain times of the year where I can pull off some travel, and I do. And I know that the annual cycle of my business allows for a few of those windows to open up, and I pop through the window at those times. In March is a particularly predictable time for me, so I typically will go out west to Colorado in March and beginning of April. Christmas, New Year's, once the year is wound down, I've been through my tax assessments, I've got my appeals filed, I've got year-end stuff wrapped up in the office with my team, we've got budgets set and reviewed for the upcoming year. When you get through all of that, I can start to think about, all right, with my family, where are we gonna go? But no, I don't predetermine a date certain. I got to get through it. I mean, it's way more important for me to get through it and to take the licks, to take the punches, and just make sure I get my stuff done, take care of my business. If I know it's all wrapped up, tied up in a bow, my team has it handled, once we close on a deal or once we start a project, I can start to think about blowing off some steam or playing hard or whatever the case may be. But
was knowing the right time to do that and kind of intuitively knowing that always something you were good at, or was that something that you had to develop over time? Because I can imagine you being, you say you love your business, being tempted to just work all the time.
I work a lot. I will never pass up an opportunity because I feel like going on a vacation. I mean, I don't need a fucking vacation. I mean, there's time for vacations. There's time for sleep. There's time for those luxuries. I consider them luxuries. I mean, look, my family needs to go have family time, and I make time for that. But we can have family time. If all of a sudden there was no more travel, and all of a sudden there was no more vacations, I'd be with my family at home. We'd have a great time. We'd be together in our home. I mean, it's great. It's not Fiji, but I don't give a shit about that. Going to Fiji is great. It's lovely. And I hope everybody gets a chance to go to Fiji, but it's not going to make or break my life. If I don't pursue the opportunity in front of me, if I don't pull the trigger on it, because I have some ticket booked to Tulum, and I'm going to go because I just really worked hard for the past 3 weeks, and I'll deal with that opportunity when I get back. That opportunity is not going to be there when I get back. I would have missed it. And nobody that I know in business who's successful, who's hungry, would ever pass up an opportunity because of some leisure time. I mean, leisure time comes second. It's important to have, but for me it comes second. I take care of my business first, I take care of my family first, get leisure time, and I know I'll get leisure time. I know there's gonna be the in-betweens. So I don't schedule it, I don't plan for it. I just know it's gonna happen in the pulse and the heartbeat of my month and quarter and year. I know that there's gonna be those openings, so I'll take them when they come. I don't need to plan for them. That's just me. Other people plan for them, but when you plan, you're closing the door on a bunch of stuff to open the door for your leisure time. I don't work like that. I want to make sure that I'm taking care of my business and my family first. I'll get my leisure time in whenever I can. I mean, no one's really hungry for any leisure time. In my world, when we get it, and we always get it, it's great, and we make it count for sure.
What was your first apartment building deal? I realize I've never asked you what your first apartment building deal was, and how did that affect you moving forward?
My first apartment building deal was during grad school down in Washington, D.C. It was probably late 1990, early 1991. I'm going to go with 1991, early 1991. I bought a 6-family house in Washington, not too far from school. I had it rented out to young professionals, some grad students. I did it because I was studying real estate in grad school. I was a real estate finance economics student in graduate school. And so the topic of owning real estate and renting out real estate and valuing real estate and evaluating real estate for its income and expenses and figuring out numbers, it was something that I was involved with and digesting and consuming every day. And I really wanted to understand the correlation between reading about it in a book and actually doing it in real life. And so, I looked in the papers, and there was no internet back then, and called brokers and said, do you have any apartment buildings? And Of course, I learned that anything that had size, it was out of my league. I mean, I was 21 years old, 22 years old. I found that I could afford a 4-family or 6-family, so I found a 6-family deal down the road from school, had it rented out to grad students and young professionals, owned it, managed it. I mean, I bought it because I thought that I was going to move into it. The funny thing was, I never moved into it. I was going to move into it, live in one unit, rent out the other 5. We hear people talk about doing that all the time. And I thought that was going to be me, and I never did that. And I was like a micro landlord. I had 1 building, 6 units. I had it for the couple of years that I was in grad school. I left Washington, I sold it. And I made money on it. And it paid me along the way. How did it set me up for the future after that? You know, I had to apply for credit and get a mortgage. I was 20-nothing years old. I didn't have credit, right? I was coming out from under the economic umbrella of being a kid in my parents' house for my whole life. So what did I know or have? Nothing is the answer. So, you know, you go to apply for a mortgage on a 6-unit apartment house. They want to know what your FICO score is. They want to know what your income is. Income? I mean, I'm a student, right? I figured out quickly how to make myself look right for a bank.
How did you do that?
I needed help.
Okay.
I needed a co-signer on the loan. I needed someone to be there alongside me for the bank to underwrite and look to so that they could fund my purchase of the building. I mean, I couldn't do it all on my own. I had some phantom ghost backstops there to help me, signing loan documents, and I had to give them something for it. But I was lucky to have them there. And you know, I was able to do it. I learned quickly how to relate to tenants, how to attract tenants, how to write an ad to put in the paper so that it would stick out from all the other hundreds of ads for apartments for rent. I mean, I had to figure out how to be different than all those hundreds of other ads. And so I'm in my young 20s, and I'm seeing that I'm dead in the water if I don't get an apartment rented quickly, and I'm dead in the water if I don't get a bank loan, and I'm dead in the water if I don't pay my bills on time. So it sort of kicked my ass into gear. But I do remember how it set me up for realizing how to package myself to look the right way for a bank. And then also it really made me understand that a 6-family house was too small. And
why do you say that?
well, you know, you have one apartment go vacant, you're 15% vacant. You have 2 go vacant, you're 30%. And you know, you have to carry that. Right. And I was working 2 jobs while going to school and running this building, and all my money from working my jobs had to go fund my vacancies so that I could pay my mortgage and taxes and insurance. And you know, you learn quickly the importance of getting an apartment rented really fast.
So there's actually such a thing as starting too small to some extent.
Well, you have to start somewhere. I don't know that it was starting too small. It was successful for me, both financially and educationally. So I don't know that I started too small. Look, if we can all start with $1 billion in the bank and go out and buy huge buildings, I mean, that would be great and fun. Many of us would fall on our faces because you have to know how to walk before you run. So I'm an advocate of walking before you run. So I don't know that I started too small, but it taught me how to package myself. It taught me the importance of having a sense of urgency with getting things rented, what a good product was to be able to rent, if it looked right, if it felt right when you opened up the door, if natural light was coming in, if the shades were down, if the appliances looked like shit. When you open up the oven door, if it's all greasy and crappy inside, you know, versus if it's clean inside. If you go into the bathroom and the caulking is all cracked and shrunken around the tub and the toilet base and the sink, you know, it's very easy to scrape away the old caulk and put in new caulking. But who does it? Well, we'll find out when we go and look at different apartment buildings. I learned that I had to do it because the first couple of months when I was showing apartments with cracked, shrunken, yellowed caulking, people go, oh, that looks gross. And I'd be like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And I'd look, I'm like, oh shit, it does look gross. So, you know, you learn quickly what the market wants. And I was happy to have the opportunity with a 6-family building to learn a bunch of these things. But it was just having a 6-family building was too small for me. I realized that the economics were not really there. And the guys that I saw that were experienced in real estate and very successful and wealthy, they didn't have 6-family houses. They had portfolios of big buildings. And, you know, so the example I had in front of me was the larger scale example. There was no real example of a successful, wealthy real estate guy who had a portfolio of 6 family houses.
Right.
So the example that I had to look at was the real estate guy who was wealthy and successful that had portfolios of large buildings. And I started to connect those dots and saying, oh yeah, well, 6 family house, it's nice, it's cute. If I had this 6 family and the 4 next to them that were also 6 families, and you could manage all 5 of those 6 family buildings with one super and with yourself managing all of that. Now you've got 6 times 5 is 30 units. Now you got a 30 unit building, even though you've got 5 different boilers and 5 different roofs. It's a 30 units of economics sitting right there.
Back to your idea of the box and being able to master the management and the handling of that box.
You want to own a city and build out a city, you got to start here and build out like this. I did that in New York. I did that in New Jersey. I'm never on the road driving 1 or 2 hours to look at assets in my portfolio all day long. I mean, my peers in my industry are always on the road, driving all over the place because they think, oh, well, if I can get to it within an hour or 2 hours, it's within my management perimeter and I can get to it. And they're just on the road all day.
It adds up.
It's just, yeah, it's a lot of driving. It's a lot of time in the car. It's not efficient. A lot of money is lost with inefficiencies. I think that's one way right there. So I always build out my cities, and I say cities as a metaphor for my portfolios, but I build out my cities from the inside out, building next to building next to building, across the street, down the block, over here, and then you wake up one day and you've got a very tight perimeter with a lot of density, and there's where you can have some chance for success.
And it all started with 1.
It did.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a listener question.
From?
Today from Facebook.
Facebook.
And
is the person older, like in their 60s or 70s? I mean, I'm just trying to understand
totally.
The demographic of the different platforms.
I'm guessing that this one's probably like 30s. Probably like not quite.
There's a 30-year-old on Facebook, and we found them.
Yeah.
All right.
Rarity.
Yeah.
Do I need a financial advisor? At what point is that a good idea?
Do I need a financial advisor? I think people need financial education. Young, old, rich, poor. I think we need to talk more about money, talk more about finances, learn more about finances and how the world works financially, how our lives and our day-to-day work financially. So that we all need. And you either get that by reading about it, seeking it out. Someone can advise you. I think the financial advisor person in this question is probably not the person to teach us or teach you or this listener about finances and money. I think that we all have to get to a certain base level with financial education first and foremost. I think what this person is asking, do I need a financial advisor to help me figure out where to invest and how to split up my money and to invest in stocks or bonds or real estate? I mean, I think that's what the question probably is.
Yeah, that seems to be the case.
I know very wealthy, successful people have no financial advisors. They do it all themselves. And I know people that are very successful that have people managing their money for them. I think it depends on what you want out of it and what you want to learn and achieve out of it. If this is a young person, like you're saying, perhaps they're in their 30s, I'd say that if they have a significant net worth and they don't know much about money and how to put money to work, that maybe a formal financial advisor relationship is good. I think it's good to have these formal relationships. I think everybody in business should have like a couple of lawyer friends, a couple of financial advisor friends, a couple of real estate guy friends, guys, women, a couple of technology savvy people, and really leverage those friendships and those relationships and look within your circle for that stuff first. You really need financial advice more than the next guy if you're not living within your means, if you spend more than you make. You really need financial advice if you're investing and a few years go by and you're just not successful with it. You probably need someone to give you some ideas or give you some structure, some management. You really need financial advice if you've never had any formal financial education or really any cultural or social financial education. I mean, there's so much that people in our society just don't know about earning money, paying taxes, how to invest, the difference between checking accounts and savings accounts. I mean, things basic like that, people don't know. So I think you got to go out and learn the basics first on your own before you look to someone else to help you and save you and give you answers. Once you have the basics down, if you've gone through 10, 12, 15 years of life, you're working your job, this person's in their 30s, they've made some money. Yeah, I mean, what do you want to do? Do you want to continue to work your job and have someone just earn you market rate returns? Keep in mind, 95% of all financial advisors and fund managers do not even match the S&P. Not even beat the S&P. They don't even match the S&P. So you're talking about 5% of the financial advisory population that can match or do better than the S&P. Chew on that for a second before you go seek financial advice from someone. So I would love to see people first gain financial education and knowledge themselves before you go to possibly one of these 95% of the people who are knuckleheads to tell you what to do. But yeah, financial advice in whatever form it comes is typically a welcome thing and a good thing. Seek it out yourself. Get educated early. Get educated yourself. If you need some investment ideas, call around, DM me. If you want to get into real estate, DM me. Real estate hasn't been typically and historically accessible to accredited investors forever, and now it's starting to become accessible. So if you want to have exposure to real estate, there's people now who are making it available. Siegel Capital is one of those people, so feel free to reach out.
Well, it's time for another episode of Shut the Fuck Up.
Shut the fuck up.
So Peter, I wanted to touch base for this week. I thought we could talk a little bit about the landlord-tenant relationship. That you've spoken before about how, like, the things that you do to develop those relationships and to positively, reinforce that relationship. I was curious as to what tenants could do to either reinforce that relationship with you or things that they shouldn't be doing. It's just shut the fuck up. So are there bad players that you've witnessed that you say, oh, you really don't want to do that?
Fair question. The ideal landlord-tenant relationship is one where no one hears from the other side unless there's an absolute need. So I'll give you an example. The landlord wants the tenant to move into the apartment, pay like clockwork on the first of the month, live quietly and peacefully, not be crazy and break shit and have parties late at night and be the source of phone calls and complaints. And if something breaks in the normal course of using the apartment, call us, let us know. The landlord goes and fixes it quickly, and everyone's happy, right? Landlord gets paid, landlord fixes the apartment, tenant's happy, they have a clean, safe, quiet place to live, the hallways are clean, the parking lot's clean, the apartment's well maintained. Other than that, we never want to hear from each other, both sides. That's the ideal relationship. For 1 to 3% of the renter population, not just in my portfolio, but out there in the world, 1 to 3% of all renters in the world can't achieve that ideal relationship. Because something will happen and they'll hide, they'll run from it, they'll try and cover it up. So typically, you'll find that the people that pay the higher rents are a little easier to deal with, the market rate paying people, and the people that are paying the lower rents, the more legacy rents, maybe regulated rents, are the ones that complain a lot. I found that to be the case, and it's a wild thing. And I don't blame. I know this is shut the fuck up we're talking about. I don't place blame on a tenant at a certain economic bracket or paying a certain rent amount. Look, if they're in your building, they're your tenant and you're their landlord, and that ideal landlord-tenant relationship is now the obligation. You want them to pay, they want you to fix stuff, and assuming that you're fixing stuff and assuming that they're paying, you should never really hear from one another.
That's all good.
I find that people, when they don't pay, and we have to then start calling them, and we have to then have someone at the office pick up the phone and spend time to manage them, and hey, it's the office, where's your money, and everything okay, we haven't heard from you, and now we have to have someone on payroll to spend their time doing that, and we don't get a call back, or we get a call back and we hear, oh, everything's fine, and then the money still doesn't come in, and then another 3 weeks go by, and we're about to start legal, and then all of a sudden there's all these complaints that this person has, whereas these complaints never existed yesterday, a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. So sometimes we find when there's something that happens in a tenant's personal life, their personal situation, and they can't pay rent, interestingly, we find that often they will substitute paying rent for fabricating and creating these crazy situations. Property owners and landlords out there, DM me and comment below. I want to hear from you about this because this happens all the time. And I know that it's happened to you guys too, right? Where everything's fine with a tenant forever. All of a sudden they stop paying and you call up and say, hey, what's the matter? They say nothing. As soon as you go take them to court, all of a sudden there's a laundry list of things that you're guilty of as the property owner and property manager. You didn't fix this, you didn't paint, you told me you would paint, you never came by, nothing works. And you're like, what? Nothing works? Like, never heard about that at all. You know, you go to the emails, you go to the online portal, you look at the maintenance records, there's no complaints from you. What are you talking about? The lease says, oh, here's a lease trick, by the way. Our leases say that the tenant is obligated to inform the landlord immediately if there's anything broken or in need of repair and maintenance.
That's great.
So they can't just sit on it and like expect that we'll have known. Right. Like we only know if the tenant tells us. That's actually in the lease.
Can't create a savings bank of complaints for...
Well, yeah, because what happens is we go and start court proceedings if we have to enforce our rights and try and get paid. And the tenant will say, oh, well, there's nothing works and this is broken. And we'll go, oh, really? Can we pull out the maintenance records? There's no entry from the tenant on our complaints or emails or anything. So we sort of paper ourselves and document the file really, really well. But 1 to 3% of the renter population are bad players. They're a very small percentage of professional tenants. This is a whole level of player on their own stratosphere. I mean, they game you, they game the system, they give you a deposit, they make no payments. They will find ways to live rent-free or very close to rent-free for a long time. And it happens in these cities and urban areas where there's lots of rent regulation and there's inefficiencies and incompatibilities with the regulations and reality, and people take advantage of that. So 1 to 3%, you've got the professional tenants, you've got the people who are a little combative and who are a little entitled. You've got people that maybe have had a tough moment and fallen on a hard time, but they're not communicating with you. Instead, they're hiding it, sweeping it under the carpet, and that usually goes south pretty quickly.
Yeah, communication seems to be at the heart of really a lot of what we're talking about.
It is. So to your question, then I think communication on the tenant's part, what can they do? They can communicate. Communicate a maintenance need. Communicate a financial interruption. Hey, I need another week or two. I know I'm late. I'm sorry. I'll pay the late. You know, something like that. But like going radio silent or telling me everything's fine, and then when I take you to court, fabricating a whole list of imagined deficiencies on the landlord's part. I mean, shut the fuck up. It doesn't work like that. And you're not going to get over on me or anybody else who's half awake at the wheel.
All right, last question before Zest Quests.
What is it?
3 to 5 things that you do every day to win the day.
So 3 to 5 things that I do to win the day, every day. Number 1, I wake up early. Early bird gets the worm. I want to be awake while everyone else is asleep. That's how I'm going to get my competitive edge. That's how I'm going to get started earlier. I'm going to get to the job earlier. I'm going to get to the office earlier. I'm in the game earlier. Number 2, I'm going to set some time either right then when I wake up or plan it out in my day to have quiet time to think, maybe meditate if I can pull that off in my day. But having some time to be quiet and listen to yourself think and think about some things that require your thought is going to help you win. You can't just go, pound, pound, pound all day long at full speed. There has to be another side of that coin where you've got some quiet time and you can listen to yourself think. Number 3, you got to eat right. So put the right stuff in your body so that you're fueled physically for the day that you're trying to win. I mean, if you eat like shit and you want to win your day, good luck. Number 4, and so important, be organized and scheduled. When you wake up, you're starting a day, you got to know what you're out trying to tackle every day. You got to know what your goals are. You got to know what your to-do list is. You got to know what your schedule is. You got to know what you want to do. Do you want to delete things that you accomplish, move over the things that you don't to tomorrow and try them tomorrow? That's what I do. But you got to power through your day in some sort of organized and scheduled fashion. Those are my 4 things, George. What are your 4 things?
My 4 things, man. I think trying to mitigate, my first would be mitigating decisions as much as possible. So I eat, the same thing for breakfast, same thing for lunch, and then dinner I have fun. I eat whatever I want. And so that's just one example, but trying not to overwhelm myself with too many decisions and kind of just be efficient with that.
Good.
Fitness is definitely huge. You mentioned that, that I work out every day, and that really creates momentum moving forward.
How's your 10-minute plank going?
It's great. I did it this morning.
You did?
Yeah, I did.
Your machine.
10-minute plank, and I did 100 squats, 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups.
Next week, I want to be on that side of the camera with you doing a 10-minute plank.
Sounds great. We'll do it. I love it.
What else?
Third, sleep I think is huge.
Yeah, it's a big one.
For me.
When do you sleep?
So as far as time or like.
Yeah. What hours do you sleep?
Yeah, so
you go to bed early, you stay up late, what do you do?
Yeah, I usually try and get to bed by like 10:30, 11, and I wake up around 7:45, 7:30 around there. So yeah.
I got you by 2 hours already that time.
No, well, and that's the thing. You're up before. This is what Jocko Willink would say: up before the enemy.
Yeah.
And he only sleeps. I think it's like 6 hours, 5 hours, or whatever. And so that's the part that you definitely got me on. I got to work on that. And then lastly, I think you brought up meditation, and that's huge with me. That meditation and prayer are something that really center me.
Yeah, thinking is a key. It's a secret weapon that people don't do enough of that. And if they were to, they would find so many parts of their lives, I think, fall into place a little bit. Because when do you really have time to think about stuff? I mean, when I'm in my car driving for a little bit of time, I'll turn off the radio, shut off my phone. I can think a little bit. I do it then.
Our first episode we did visualize the run, and that's part of that. It's
yes,
like,
it is.
Sitting with that idea and seeing what you need to accomplish throughout the day, and it allows you to kind of force multiply what you're going to do.
Okay, and now we have Zest Quests, George. So for you this week,
all right.
I have a Zest Quest for you. Tell me something that you wish you had done when you were a kid. Perhaps you did it later on in life, but I want to hear about one thing that you wish you had done earlier in your life when you were young.
One thing that I wish I had done earlier in my life. I hate to be predictable, but I think it has to be this answer. I think. Oh no, I was going to say workout because that was an easy one to go, but actually no, I'm going to say dance.
Dance.
I wish that I had danced earlier, and I love to dance. When I'm at a wedding, I dance a lot, but I wish I'd taken some classes, and I love watching Gene Kelly, Sabian Glover, doing tap dancing or whatever it might be. I feel like there's a real freedom in that, and I love music. I'm a musician, and that's part of me. But I missed out on being Justin Timberlake. I think with the dance component.
Well, Justin owes you a bit of thanks because you left the window open for him to go do it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah.
Do you have Zest Quests for me, George?
I do have Zest Quests.
What are they?
So the first one is, if your house caught fire, and assuming that your family and pets and all that get out, what are the 3 things that you grab?
Come on. I grabbed my 58 Les Paul, my 58 Les Paul Gold Top, and one of the other guitars, probably my 52 Tele.
Yeah.
Les Paul Tele and Strat. I'm going to revise the answer. I'm going to grab my 58 Les Paul Standard, my 52 Telecaster, and my 57 Blonde Stratocaster.
Love it. Hell yeah.
And what I'll probably do is have one of those over-the-shoulder soft cases that hold 4 guitars, and have them already in the case so I can get those 3 plus another one on my left shoulder and another case with 4 guitars on my right shoulder. Now I've got 8 guitars, but only 2 items because I've got 2 bags.
Sure. No amps?
Yeah, I got it. Oh man.
You got 2 bags, but you still have one.
See, here's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna reconstruct my whole house with a very high-tech fire defense escape system.
I'm glad I asked this question so you can prepare
at the push
for this.
of a button or with an app on my phone, if there's a fire and I'm caught and I gotta get out, I swipe right and the girl of my dream shows up. But also, all my guitars and amps just sort of magically get enclosed in some Kevlar bubble and they get beamed out through osmosis to safety.
I'm so glad I asked this question because otherwise you'd be up Schitt's Creek when the fire happens.
Yeah, just don't let me deal with burned guitars. I can't. I'm sick to my stomach even thinking about it.
You know, it's funny. I was just listening to a podcast with Bob Mould from Husker Du, and he was saying how when he was in like 21, 22, 23, all he had was guitar, an amp, and he was sleeping in a van.
Yeah.
And he said, I did a tremendous amount with just those things.
I'm running out of that house burning naked. I don't need clothes. I don't need my money. I can't. It would crush me if I ever saw one of these beautiful guitars suffer a fate like a fire. Yeah. And when I read about it, there was a flood in Nashville like 10 years ago. I forget the exact date. Nashville remembers. Yeah. And in the guitar community, people remember because there was a storage facility by the river. The flood occurred, and the flood took out all these guitars in the storage facility, and some really great guitars and some really great collections suffered through that flood. And man, I was nauseous for a month. It was just such a pit in my stomach, and I felt so horrible for those people and for those guitars.
Yeah,
so
I hear that.
For some reason, I'm emotionally attached and spiritually attached to these things. I'm grabbing guitars.
Yeah. Awesome. And last question. What is your emotional home? What is the emotional state that you feel like you visit the most often? And
I didn't hear the question. Start again.
What is your emotional home? So what is like an emotional state that you feel like you live in more often than others? And then what would you want that to be a year from now?
My emotional home?
Yeah.
Contentment. And where do I want to be?
A year from now. I guess you might want to keep it the same.
Nowhere else. I don't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah.
When I need to go someplace emotionally, I close my eyes. I think about my family, my daughter. Think about my parents, my brothers, my friends, giving me so much in my life: happiness, support, laughter. So that stuff can never be taken away from me. So if I ever need to get right or get corrected, think about those things, and very quickly I can get to a very good place of contentment.
Yeah. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you so much, Peter. Appreciate you taking the time. Love the Zest Quests.
Thank you, George.
Yeah, this was nice.
You can be ready for more Zest Quests next week, George.
I'll prepare myself.
And a 10-minute plank.
Yeah, I'm always ready for that.
Comment, like, and DM me if you want to see George do a 10-minute plank. If there's a demand for it out there, I will make it happen. So let me know, everybody. And George, hashtag the shit out of this so that people who are interested in fitness and planking see this, because I want to know who wants to see you do a 10-minute plank.
We'll create the poll. Sounds good.
I want to see you do a 15-minute plank.
Yeah. Well, that's going to take a little bit more training, but I'll keep you updated on that. And if that can happen, then we'll make it happen.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right.